Tasty. It's coming! Okay, now that I've successfully passed an orange deuce from my freshly loose caboose, the first thing we need to do is draw on our design using the marker that is magical. Like that. And the flesh-removing implements we'll be starting with are just some clay carving tools and a hobby knife. Now the way we begin is by following the lines we drew, removing redundant areas we know will be lower and more sunken in, like above the eyebrows, the eyes, around the mouth, and the bridge of the nose. After coming to the realization that continuing the use of these antediluvian utensils is going to take a time which is protracted, I made the sensible decision and switched to power tools, as one does when carving one's butt fruit. I began by using the slender structure-toothed carbide cutter to open up his nostrils. Once done, be sure to clear the debris as it has a tendency to build up. Now using the bit to round over hard edges and add the beginnings of detail. Also, one benefit of using a rotary carver on a pumpkin is how clean the process is. Switching back briefly to the clay tools and hobby knife so I can set about roughing in the teeth, then abruptly changing to the rotary carver with a spherical bit, because I have ADHD. Using it to add a little more depth and to remove the remaining bits of pumpkin skin. If the Disney Pocahontas is correct, then this process is probably quite painful. And speaking of ADHD, is your mental unhealthy? Are you easily distracted? If you said yes or no to either of those things, then you should totally give today's sponsor BetterHelp a try. Why? Because you don't have to actively be sad or struggling for mental health issues in order to benefit from therapy. In my last video that most of you didn't see, I mentioned that I wasn't doing very well. Well, I'm actually doing so much better now, and I believe that is directly because of the therapy I'm receiving through BetterHelp. But am I now just going to stop using them because I'm doing better? No. Why? I just told you! Maintaining your mental health is just as important as healing it, which is why I'm still seeing my therapist every single week. And I usually do it in my bedroom on my phone, which is honestly one of the best features of BetterHelp in my opinion. But besides convenience, BetterHelp offers group therapy, where you can witness the success of other members. They have interactive classes so you can learn more about topics such as substance abuse, anxiety, depression, grief, etc. There's also a built-in journal and even a feature where you can set goals to keep track of progress. It's kind of amazing. So if like me you believe therapy is beneficial regardless if you're currently struggling, then please click the link in the description, or you can go to betterhelp.com/BobbyDukeArts and sign up and get 10% off your first month. Here I am switching back and forth between different bits and tools again. A good way to understand why I'm doing this is to think of them in the same way you would different paintbrushes that a painter would use. Different tools remove materials in different ways, thus achieving different effects differently. And what is that fly's problem? Seriously, I thought they were only interested in eating Dukey and rubbing their shitty little hands together, not pumpkins. I digress. Now that I have the main face structure complete, I'm going back over with the V-shaped clay tool and hobby knife to cut in the fine details. This is where the really fun part happens, because I can just let my imagination run free. Because as the great Bob Ross always used to say, people who say they'll give 110% don't understand how percentages work. Now that I have most of the details set, I discovered that using a Brillo pad could essentially act like sandpapier to smooth and blend. Poop in the pupils, and now we are done with the carving part. Goodness, he's adorable. Now, this next part is optional, but I made the decision to use food coloring in order to add a little tone and depth. Starting with the red, I painted into the low areas between the creases, which will help to accentuate them. Then added black to the inside of the mouth, pupils, booger caves, and around the edges of the eyes to really make them pop. Now stab it right in the skull and remove its brains, but be sure to save those for later. I also decided to give him a sweet hairdo, so on a different pumpkin, we'll use the hobby knife and cut a shallow line at an angle, then back the other way to remove a thin strip. Then repeat a buttload of times until you have piles. To alleviate them, use a donut-shaped pillow when sitting on hard surfaces. Do you avoid walking around naked in public like I sometimes do? Well, what better way to accomplish that than to cover your shame with an awesome t-shirt designed by the famous artist 1000. It's beautifully printed on ultra comfy material that I hand selected. And while you're at it, why don't you pick up one of these cool hats and other designs so your friends will be envious of how clothed you've become. I have all kinds of sizes for all kinds of people, even miniature ones. So click the link in the description or head over to BobbyDukeArts.com and support me directly while simultaneously not being naked. Unless you're into that. When applying the hair, it's helpful to have someone beautiful that's also smarter than you place the top on while you hold everything in place. And now you're finished. And that's how you carve a super spooky Dukey pumpkin. Remember when I said to save the brains? Well, little known fact is they make a sinfully delicious snack to celebrate declaving its faceless flesh in order to carve a wholly new one. I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to Gateway of Benbrook for letting me run through their store naked.